In the early 2000s, I was sitting in my office trying to figure out what I would do if I needed to hire a new basketball coach. And you always hear that ADs have this list in their back pocket or in their desk of potential candidates for their next job. And the more I thought about that, I thought, well, that's maybe right. But the reality is that unless you really know somebody, why would you make up a list? And here I was as a mid-major athletic director who had no ability to communicate or connect with any Power 5 assistant coaches. And if you look back over the years, the successful mid-major programs have usually hired a very, very successful assistant coach from one of the preeminent programs. So like a lot of times you have to sit down and figure out, how am I going to deal with this problem? So I said to myself, how can I create a situation where mid-major athletic directors can engage and connect with the next generation of head basketball coaches? So as I did that, I thought, why don't I figure out a way to facilitate that? So it just came to me. I had to realize that in this environment, we as mid-major athletic directors would have to find a way to get a large group of mid-major or of preeminent assistant basketball coaches together. So I knew that most of the top assistant coaches in the country would be at an AAU tournament in Las Vegas. Everybody went there, all the best prospects in the country were there, so they'd all be there. So I said, well, why don't I put together a little bit of a roundtable discussion with mid-major athletic directors in that site where the assistant coaches were, and then invite the assistant coaches to a social function with these mid-major athletic directors. So that's what I did. I've got some of my friends and associates who I thought would support the program. Wood Seelig was at Western Kentucky at that time. Edgar Johnson was at Delaware. Jim Jarrett was at Old Dominion. Those were some of the early guys that said, yeah, I'm in. Let's figure out a way to do it. So we did. And we put that together, and we had this, we probably had 15 mid-major athletic directors who came together at the Mirage in Las Vegas, and we had a couple different speakers. We talked about the issues that were facing mid-major athletic programs, and really not too much different from today, about the same things, you know, scheduling, how to build a program, how to market your program, how to create your own brand as a mid-major program. So we talked about those issues, and then that evening we invited 30 of the top assistant coaches to a social function at the Mirage. One of my good friends, well, my best friend actually, a guy by the name of Mike Nixon, was very familiar with the leadership and the ownership of the Mirage at that time. Mike actually spent a fair amount of time out in Las Vegas. So he talked to them, and they said, yeah, okay, yeah, that's a great idea. We'll sponsor this. So Mike and I were staying at a villa at the Mirage, you know, and the villas are very nice. It's more to do with Mike and his relationship with a guy named Bill Macbeth, who supported this initiative, and they provided, we had this social function that was very, very nice in one of the villas, and it wound up, that was Villa 7. So that's kind of how we came up with the name Villa 7. I'm sure people over the years have wondered about that. So that first meeting went on, and it was interesting. We talked to the assistant coaches, and a few of them came back to me and said, we really appreciate what you did, but it would really be good if we would have some sort of symposium, some sort of get together where, you know, we could get some ADs or top head coaches to come in and talk about what it was to be a head coach. So we actually put that together, and about 8 or 9 months later, we actually had a function in Charlotte where we had about 20 assistant coaches come. We had some ADs. We actually had Morgan Wooten, the famous coach from DeMatha, come. We had Bob McKillop was there. So we had a good group. We probably had eight athletic directors, 3 or 4 head coaches. Actually, Frank Haith came. He had just been named the coach at Miami. Frank came and talked about his first 100 days as a new head coach. So from there, the thing just kind of took off. Martin Newton, who still is a good friend of mine, was working for Nike. He heard about it, and Nike got involved with the program. So it really was moving along. But the more I did it, the more I kind of figured out this is really so needed. We really need a way to help prepare this next generation of head basketball coaches. But we also need to really focus on the important things that coaches do and the relationship between the coach after they get the job and the athletic director. So we continued to build on this. And I think, as I did more and more of it, it became really a passion for me. But it's always been somewhat of a passion for me to help prepare the next generation of leadership, whether it be in administration or in coaching. I feel very blessed to have been given the opportunities that I've had. So I have really kind of made that my mission in life, is to give back and to help people who have ambition, who have talent, who have drive, who have all those leadership characteristics, to really position themselves so that they will be able to move forward in their career. As part of that, in 1999, I started a graduate program at VCU called VCU Sports Center. I think they've changed it now to the Center for Sports Leadership, but it was kind of the same thing. I wanted a very practical academic program for professionals to kind of differentiate themselves from everybody else. So the graduate program at VCU was very intense. It was a year-long program, but it also it kind of embedded the students into the athletic program at VCU. So they learned a lot from being around our athletic program. And once again, it was a very professional-based program. One of the neat things about it is we kind of initiated a part of the program which was international in scope. So we took our class to Europe every year. So I think that kind of got to be a really neat thing too. So in that same trend of thought, we had the academic program going. So now I wanted to do kind of a non-academic program that helped coaches. So that's kind of how this whole thing got going. And then I guess in 2008 or 9, whatever it was, I retired and kind of got away from it. Some people took Villa 7 and then it kind of fell apart and it wasn't in existence. So when I got back in this thing, at East Tennessee State University, President Nolan asked me to kind of help on a short-term basis. The short-term turned into about 5 years. A lot of ADs and actually coaches who had been through the program said, "Doc, you probably ought to get this the Villa 7 thing going again." And one of the people who was really instrumental in it was a guy who actually was part of another passion of mine, and that was to create a doctoral program. So with the help of the support of President Nolan and the help of one of my guys who I worked with at ETSU, a guy named Dr. Brian Johnson, we created the ETSU Global Sports Leadership Doctoral Program. So one of our first graduates was a young guy named Lyle Wolf. Dr. Wolf, who went through our program, said to me, "Doc, if you start Villa 7 again and use your connections, I'll do all the work." So I said, "Well, okay, Lyle, let's go ahead and get it done." But we kind of did that 2 months prior to. So as we started to investigate to recreate Villa 7, we found out that somebody who had no involvement, no anything to do with Villa 7 went out and copyrighted the name Villa 7. So we really then had to come up with another name. So talked to some people, talked to my son, who is a pretty sharp marketing guy. We came up with the name TopConnect. And so we started 2 years ago to do this program called TopConnect. We did it in Las Vegas with the help of UNLV, and Desiree Reed-Francois has been great, but also kind of brought back some of the guys who were instrumental in the original Villa 7, and then, Wood Seeley, who's now at Old Dominion, Mark Benson, who now is the AD at Albany, Mike Capaccio, who is now the AD at the Citadel, Rick Boyages, who is Associate Commissioner of the Big Ten. So those guys kind of became critical to bringing it back. Talked to Martin Newton, who had left Nike, went to Kentucky, but now was the AD at Samford. So Martin was involved. And then some of my good friends, Mark Wharton at Chattanooga, Kim Record at UNC Greensboro, Jeff Coney at Northeastern. They all kind of got involved, and they're the ones that have kind of made this thing a success. So that's kind of where we are. And of course, this year with the pandemic, we couldn't do our in-person TopConnect. So we put together this virtual TopConnect, which I think is going to be even bigger and better than ever before. So we have some great panelists. When you look at it, Anthony Grant, the National Coach of the Year, Steve Forbes, who was the Mid-Major National Coach of the Year. We have Phil Fulmer, who is a Hall of Fame coach, now the AD at Tennessee. Muffet McGraw, National Championship winning coach at Notre Dame. Carolyn Peck, who won the national championship at Purdue. So we have some great coaches to share their knowledge. Mike Smith, good friend of mine who I play golf with quite a bit. Mike, who wrote a book, You Win in the Locker Room First, is going to talk about his thoughts from being an NFL Coach of the Year 3 times. Plus, we have ADs of panels, but one of the critical pieces that we're trying to do with this is connect mid-major coaches to athletic directors. So we have this segment called Speed Dating, where we connect the assistant coaches with the ADs in a virtual way for about 8 or 9 minutes. That's going to be a real challenge. Unfortunately, Jimmy, my son, and some of our staff at ETSU are working very hard to kind of figure that all out. So that's where we are. It's exciting for me, once again, to not only connect assistant coaches with mid-major athletic directors, but to really develop some very compelling content that we can share with a lot of different people. I've been very fortunate to have so many people support this initiative. Of course, our president at ETSU, Dr. Brian Nolan, has been incredibly supportive and enthusiastic. Dr. Brian Johnson, who I work with in global sports leadership at ETSU, has been a big help. Cheryl Hanks, who is my associate in the global sports leadership. Those people have really come together to allow this to happen. So all I can say is thanks to them. But I think this video is the first of many that will be out there that I hope we can share and help you move forward in your career. So thank you very much. And TopConnect is alive and well. And the one thing I want to tell you is that both Villa 7 and TopConnect, nobody's ever paid to go to this. It's purely, something that I do because I want to give back. I want to do something that'll help the next generation of coaches. I want to help current mid-major athletic directors. And I just want to create compelling content that we can share to many people in a leadership capacity and people who are trying to build their careers. So that's my thoughts. And I appreciate all the folks who made this happen. Thanks.